Okay, got it. So we can start now. Um, Good morning, class, and lecturers. Today we are very pleased to have a good opportunity for sharing about our topic on assessing speaking and also testing our ability. And I myself will share on the assessing speaking, and Gesna on the other hand share testing oral ability. Okay. So we divide into different content as showing here. Okay, next. Okay, for me, I have 7 points actually to share to everyone. So first, I will talk something about basic types of speaking, and then micro and macros of speaking, macro skill, and also the designing assessment, including imitative speaking, intensive speaking, and responsive speaking, and 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 this also inform about the test of spoken English as the end of my part. Okay, next. Okay, what we talk about this term to understand basically of the type of speaking, we can divide it into 5 important part of speaking. So we can see imitative, which is the refer to the ability to imitate, like a parrot, right? Imitate the language from the human, like that. And another one is intensive. So intensive, we need to pay full attention on narrowing grammatical, phrasal, lexical, or phonological relations, just like stress, intonation. So we learn specifically on a single part of the language, not the whole part. And another one is responsive. So in responsive speaking, focusing on the interaction between the interlocutor so that they can practice standard conversation to make the speaker feel authenticity, okay, experience authenticity. And another one, we got another two. We got another 2 point on interactive, which is focused on the length and complexity of interaction, and this interactive also sometimes require a lot of people or multiple participants to participate in this type of speaking. And the last one is extensive speaking. It is monologue. Sometimes we speak alone. Yeah, we speak alone, and to the audience. For example, we do oral presentation. So we, the speaker, as a monologue, we just speak to the audience, and the audience just listen to us. And just like we tell a story to the children, for the children to listen to the story. So it is also extensive. Right. Um, so this is 5 types of speaking as we experience in speaking. So next. So the second point number 2, focus on macro and micro skill of speaking. So in speaking, we divide um, the skills into 2. For micros, micro skill in speaking, we just focus on the study on phoneme, right? And allophonic variants, we learn about chants, like that, or we learn about the stress patterns in vocabulary, or intonations in the phrasal sentence, like that. And lexical units, we also focus on that. And fluent of speech, pauses, right, filter and self-correction, okay, backtracking, grammatical word, and classes 10 or plural, singular, plural, like that, right? And also cohesive device that these fields are under the umbrella of micro skill. And then macro skill, next, we focus on another thing. Macro skill, next. Yeah. Micro skill here is we also focus on communicative functions, just like goals, situation, style, register, yeah, implications or redundancies, interruption, social linguistic features. So we learn a lot of pattern regarding the analysis, like discourse analysis, or the connection between communication or event, right? Different context, we can analyze different function of communication. Uh, the understanding of between interlocutors, between speakers, okay? If they understand each other, it is the success of communication. For example, it is so this field are the under the umbrella of the micro skill. Okay, so next. The point number 4, it's about we know, right, about imitative speaking. We just speak and imitate to the speaker on the specific, okay, lexis, phrase or sentence. Just imitate what we hear. But in designing tasks for imitating speaking, we can use a phone pairs test. For example, if you if we want to test ourselves whether or not we can repeat it correctly, just repeat by using the phone, and then the phone will record our voice. If we can speak, produce the voice correctly, produce sound correctly. So the phone pairs test can recognize our voice. So it is important. Okay, next. Yeah, another types of test. Yeah, next, Gesna. Yep. In here, for intensive, we can do direct test. Okay, back, you can back one. You can do direct test. Just ask them directly in yeah, can be face to face, so that we can elicit grammar form, for example. We can elicit translation. We can elicit by using question, um, and to get direct response from the test taker. And in that, they can respond directly when the test taker hear what we elicit to them. And we can also read aloud for them to hear, for them to listen, and they respond, right? Okay, and we can, yeah, ask them to read aloud, and this kind of back. Yeah, in this case, yeah, hopefully the video is working. Um, right. In this case, we can check student understanding on speaking, sharing idea on what they view on pictures. So we can use picture cue tasks. And sometimes we can ask if they are lower level. Just ask them, okay, what does this picture mean? Or, okay, what is this? Okay, ask them something to explain the picture. Okay, so next. The next one is about designing assessment tasks on responsive speaking. So in responsive speaking, mostly it is we use Q&A, right? Question and answer. Ask them some, open-ended questions, and get the open-ended responses. Okay, just give them clear instructions, clear direction, paraphrase, ask them to paraphrase. Yeah, a lot of activity that we can use to assess their responsive speaking. Okay, it is similar to intensive, but mostly focus on how they respond. Okay, next. Number 6. Yeah, it's about test of spoken English. So when we want to test spoken English, we can just focus on discourse or pragmatic context, just like in the description, we speak a lot on description, describe something, right? Or narration, they can tell something. It can be personal experience, share personal experience. It can be summarize some content, summarize some information, or give directions. Okay, show somebody okay how where to go, right? Or give opinion, okay, share opinion, what they view on something, what they think of, and support the opinion. They can raise one important point, and then they can use some evidence to support their opinion, right? They can define something, yeah, define something, check something, give definition and explanation. Also can use compare and contrast to check the understanding. They can use this idea, opposite idea, and what is should be compared, and also exemplification, okay, providing example for the specific topic of speaking, so that this is we can use to test speaking, and to rate score or something. Mostly they use a specific rubric for scoring. Yeah, different grade and with explanation, with detailed explanation on each scoring scale, and they used to scoring, and this is type of testing in speaking. So next, um, yeah, next Gesna. Yeah, and more. Beside that, we can use the task for collecting background information. Right, it is important in speaking when we have we lack of background information, previous information. We can use this task to practice speaking. For example, about personal description, so they can describe themselves, or ask them to describe their daily routine, right? So they can tell the information before, okay, what they do every day, or ask them recommendation. So recommendation can be given based on the previous information as well, because okay, what we have now in hand and what should we recommend for the future. Okay, doing a few direction. Okay. Storytelling can be one of the most important tasks. Describe the movie, just show the movie, and they learn from the movie and describe the movie. Okay, we can be summarized from the movie. Yeah, tell the picture, use the picture and describe the picture. And make a phone call, just role play, right? For example, in role play, to collect background information, we can use phone, perform as of making phone call, describing something on specific topic, and also define key term. We can use it for collecting background information. So I think my part is coming to the end, right? So next we can say check next. Yes, right. Hopefully you all can understand. If you have more questions, wait for Q&A session in the real class. So let's move to Gesna. Gesna will share of you about testing oral ability. Okay, Gesna, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Sovann. Okay, I will presentation continue by Sovann. Testing oral ability. Here, setting the thoughts, specifying all appropriate thoughts. First is content. In content, there are operations, text types, addresses, and topics, criteria, levels of performance. Operations. The operations to take part in oral interactions, which may involve the following language functions. The first is expressing thanks, requirements, opinions, comment, attitude, confirmations, apology, wants or need, information, complaints, and reason or justifications. And the second is narrating. Is narrating a sequence of events. Next, eliciting. Eliciting is information, directions like surprise, clarifications, help, permission, and all areas above. And then directing. Directing like ordering, instructing, how to, persuading, and advising, warning. And the last is reporting. Reporting like descriptions, comment, and decisions. Text types. Text types, dialect, and multi-participant interactions normally of pass-to-pass nature, but telephone conversation not included. And next, addresses and topics. This is not specified except as under topics for writing. Criteria levels of performance. The first is accuracy. Grammatical or lexical accuracy is generally high through some errors, which do not destroy communication are acceptable. And the second is processing. Use of language generally appropriate to function the overall intention of the speaker is always clear. And next, a range. A range of language is available to the candidate. And next, flexibility is able to take the invitations, conversations, and to adapt to new topics or change of direction to through neither of these may be consistently manifested. And the last is size. Most contributions may be short, but some evidence of ability to produce more complex utterance and to develop this into discourse should be manifested. Next, containing a sample that properly represents each candidate's ability and which can be reliable judged. Here, advice on planning and conducting oral tests. The first is make the oral test as long as is possible. And the second is include as with a sample of specified content as is possible in the time available. And the third is plan the test carefully. Next, give the candidate as many fresh starts as possible. And next, select interviewers carefully and train them. And next, use a second tester for interviews. Seventh, set only tasks and topics that will be expected to cause candidates no difficulty in their own language. And next, carry out the interview in a quiet room with a good acoustic. And next, put the candidates at there is and next, collect relevant information. And the last is do not talk too much. Okay, this is a elicitations technique. The first is questions and requests or informations. Yes or no question should generally be avoided. Various functions can be elicited through requests of the kind. Can you explain to me how or why? And the second is, can you tell me what you think of? The second is pictures. Single pictures are particularly useful for eliciting descriptions. For example, this picture, a series of pictures can be used to elicit a narrative. And next, role play. Candidates can be asked to assume a role of particular situations. This allows the ready eliminations of other language functions. There can be a series of bribe items such as a friend invites you to party on an evening when you want to stay at home and watch the last episode of a television serial. Thank the friend, played by the tester, and refuse politely. Or there can be a more protracted exchange. You want your mother, played by the tester, to increase your pocket money. She is resistant to the idea. Try to make her change her mind. You want to play from London to Paris on 13 March, returning a week later. Get all the information that you need in order to choose your flight from the travel agents paid by the tester. Okay, next, uh, you role play can be carried out by two candidates with the tester as an observer. For some roles, this may be more natural, but as point out of example, the performance of one candidate may be affected by that of the other. Okay, next, interpreting. Simple interpreting tasks can be tested both predictions and comprehension in a controlled way. One of the tester acts as a monolingual speaker of the candidate's native language. The other as a monolingual speaker of the language being tested. Situation of the following kind can be set up. The native language speaker wants to invite a foreign visitor to his or her home for a meal. The candidate has to confine the invitations and act as an interpreter for the subsequent exchange. Prediction is tasted when the candidate tries to convey the meaning of what the native speaker says. Okay, next, discussions. Discussions between candidates can be a valuable source of information. This may be discussion of a topic or in order to come to decisions. For the example from the ASA 1984, there is too much sport on televisions, or your school has a substantial budget to spend on improving facilities. The following have been suggested as possible purchases for the school. The first is patio equipment, next a swimming pool, indoor or outdoor, but how much would this cost? And next a minibus, and next a computer equipment, a sauna, and any other suggestion. Discuss the advantage and disadvantage of each suggestion with your partner and try to reach agreement on the most suitable. Make other suggestion if you wish. This technique suffers from disadvantage attached to any method that depends on interactions between candidates. And next, tap recorded stimuli. A good sort of techniques is the rails associations of recognized English language schools, examinations in spoken English and comprehensions. This includes the first is describe situations. For example, you're walking through a town one day and you meet two friends who you were sure had gone to live in the USA. What do you say? And next, remarks in isolations to respond to, for example, the candidate hears, I'm afraid I haven't managed to fix that cassette player of yours yet. Sorry, or there's a good film on TV tonight. And simulated conversation, for example, the candidate is given information about a play which he or she is supposed to want to see, but not alone. The candidate is told to talk a friend and on the telephone and ask her to go to the theater and answer her questions. The candidate hears and hello, what can I do for you? And next, and hold on a moment. What's the name of the play and who's it by? And next, never heard of it. When's it on exactly? And sorry to mention it, but I hope isn't too expensive. And next, well, which night do you want to go? And how much would you like to play? And next, okay, that's all right. It it'll make a nice evening out. By although what and say is scripted, the style of speech is appropriately informations. Okay, the last is imitations. The advantage of this format are the control which can be exercised in the choice of structures, etc., and its economy. While it might provide sufficient information as part of a placement test, problems in interpretations as well as potentially unfortunate backwards effect militate against giving it a prominent role in achievement or proficiency tests. Okay, technique not recommended. The first is prepare monologue. Second is reading a lot. And the last is obtaining valid and reliable scoring. Okay, describing the criteria levels. Proficiency description. The first is accent. Accent, there are first pronunciation frequently unintelligible. The second is frequent gross errors and very heavy accents make understanding difficult, require frequent repetitions. And third, foreign accents require concentrated listening, and mispronunciations lead to occasional misunderstanding and apparent errors in grammar or vocabulary, and etc. Second is grammar. The first is grammar almost entirely inaccurate phrases, and the second is constant errors showing control of very few major patterns and frequently preventing communications. The third is frequent errors showing some major patterns uncontrolled and causing occasional irritation and misunderstanding. And next, etc. And vocabulary. The first is vocabulary inadequate for even the simplest conversations. The second is vocabulary limited to basic personal and survivable areas, time, food, transformations, family, and etc. And the third is a choice of words sometimes inaccurate. Limitation of vocabulary prevents a discussion of some common professional and social topics, and etc. Fluency. The first is speech is so halting and fragmentary that conversation is virtually impossible. Second is speech is very slow and uneven, except for short or routine sentence. And third, speech is frequently hesitant and jerky. Sentence may be left uncompleted, and etc. Comprehensions. The first is understand too little for the simplest type of conversations. The second is understand only slow, very simple speech on common social and touristic topics requires constant repetitions and rephrasing. And the third is understanding a careful, somewhat simplified, simplified speech when engaged in a dialect, but may require considerable repetitions and rephrasing, and etc. Okay, training of scores, use of more than one scorer. The scoring of oral ability is generally highly subjective. A single scorer is unlikely to be as reliable as one would wish. If two testers are involved in a loosely defined interview, then they can independently assess each candidate. If they agree, there is no problem. And if they disagree, even after discussion, then a third assessor may be referred to. Okay, I think that's all presentation by me. Back to Sovann. Sovann.
Okay, thank you so much. This is the end of our presentation, and thank you so much, class, for your attention. Okay, enjoy watching the video.